Father bless.
Благословен Бог наш, ныне присно на веки веков. Аминь.
Welcome everybody to another episode of the Orthodox Traditionalist Publications. I'm here with Father Nikolay. Father, welcome to the GOC. He's one of our recent priests. He's a convert like me, and he's from the OCA, ROCOR, and now he's with us. Welcome, Father.
Thank you, Subdeacon. It's nice to finally see you, as we said in the introduction, face to face. So
yeah, it's always hard time to get each other lined up so we can get face to face time.
But at least we've been able to communicate at night in our clergy group. That's really helpful.
Yeah, it's good. So if you would, Father, tell us a little about yourself. We'd love to. People are interested in your journey, how you or where you came from, and your whole process into true Orthodoxy.
Okay, yeah, I mean, much of what has been said by others in your recent, I watched all the interviews, is kind of one and the same. I don't know if I have much to contribute further, but I'll do my best. So Father Andrew and Father Stephen Allen are particularly a hard act to follow. Yeah, because of their experience. But really, my experience was strikingly similar to Father Stephen Allen's. Like, he really resonated with me, like strict Roman Catholic upbringing. Then I went into World Orthodox. I got a degree just like he did from Bachelor of Theology. I don't know exactly. He probably went on to get his master's, but and then I studied in the World Orthodox Seminary from 2015 to 2020. And I studied half full-time and half part-time, I'd say. And then one day I didn't even think I would ever be a priest. Just one day I got a call and they asked me in OCA. And but pretty early on, I was kind of insulated in the country parish as an old calendar. And pretty early on, I felt really uncomfortable about certain things I saw. And it was really not just an academic thing. It was in the heart. I remember the first time I went to St. Vladimir's and saw Father Andrew and the way he prayed and the way the parish prayed. And I was, wow, this is amazing. And when I was in OCA, I thought, yeah, this is really inconsistent. I love the people. I'm not questioning their piety or devotion, the clergy, but I really, I just saw some things that were very inconsistent, and I started to question and have some dialogues, and it came down to the point where I said, well, I just can't do this. So I went into old ROCOR, or new ROCOR-MP, but I thought it was old ROCOR. I'd never even heard ROCOR-MP.
Mm-hmm.
So once Vladimir Gavril canonically received me, I noticed things there too. I noticed one thing I noticed was once one of the bishops was talking and said, well, I'm very friendly with Vladika Irene of OCA. And I thought, well, that was strange, because I just read about these documents about Saint Vitaly saying that, we shouldn't commune with OCA. So I was a little confused right from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was there for a while, and I just a lot of conversations with people, really good people, nice people, even clergy I became friends with. But I really found something was missing. I always thought that in Catholicism growing up. And I had the same thing in World Orthodoxy. I could feel something was amiss in my heart. And so as I just started to read St. Seraphim of Platina, his letters, Orthodoxy and the Religion of the Future, and I could see myself going a different direction than everybody else with whom I was in communion.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how it started. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, so what made you leave? So you went from the OCA for a while. You were there for a long time. What made you leave the OCA originally?
Actually, if you read some of the synodal documents of the OCA, you would think it was like GOC, right?
Mm-hmm.
but they have a common approach. That's even been said to me. And so once I saw that this wasn't, that there was no really adherence to, traditional orthodoxy, I just said, oh, what am I doing here? Because I had this resist within thing happening with me in World Orthodox and OCA. And I was like, well, this is, and even when I went to ROCOR-MP, this still persisted. And I was like, well, what did I convert for?
Mm-hmm.
If a lot of the priests believe what they say they believe in the branch theory, toll houses you can take or leave. Very nice people. I'm nothing against. They've helped me. I love them. I can't judge because I was right there with them, except I was really struggling. And I know other people were too. It's like when Father Stephen Allen said, people would come to his parish in Detroit, Michigan, and they came from GOC and they'd see the cardinal up alongside their bishop, and they could feel some interior struggle, like, well, this doesn't seem right. But you're so desensitized and indoctrinated that ecumenism is okay. And even some of the books that were written were just inconsistent with what the synod officially taught. And so you're like, well, what do we believe? One of the things that struck me was Galatians 1:8 and St. Theodore the Studite. He quotes that, and he was a great dogmatician. And so I was just, something was off with my heart for sure. I wanted orthodoxy of the heart. St. Seraphim would talk about that, but there was always an obstacle.
Mm-hmm.
And both he and St. John talked about, well, yes, orthodoxy with the heart, but within the circumscribed boundaries of what we've always considered the church, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'm asking questions.
Was Bishop what was it, Urine of he's the OC bishop there? Is he kind of ecumenist, or I don't really know much about him?
He was trained, I think he was ordained by Archbishop of Verki.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to say what people believe. I just knew the common practice. Like Archbishop of Verki was lovely to me.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I saw Metropolitan Tikhon once. He went to Ukraine and he communed with them, and then he went to the Fanar and communed with them. Well, Onufri's in communion with MP, and then the Fanar's in communion with the Autocephalous Church of Ukraine. So that's confusing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I got from, Paul says God's not the author of confusion. So I didn't want that anymore. I wanted, and I thought ROCOR was actually very traditional. But then when I went there, it was, we're in communion with MP. And once you find out about, everything that happened there with, through Father Andrew's help, but, I had no idea that Patriarch Kirill was, and they kind of hide some of that ecumenist stuff, right? The Sergianism and the.
Yeah. Yes. So you left OCA and you came into ROCOR-MP. What was that experience like when you first got there?
Well, at first I liked it because the people that you served, they knew a little bit more than the OCA, or they were a little bit more traditional.
Mm-hmm.
But of course I'd met many clergy, and I would have talks. I became friends with many clergy, and, I could be sitting right next to a guy and he would say to me, I don't care if one fellow said to me, a very nice fellow, and I would still be his friend. I still love him dearly, but he said to me, I don't care if Patriarch Kirill calls me up tomorrow and says the nativity's on December 9th, I'm okay with that. You've probably heard those things, like the calendar doesn't matter. It's not a serious issue. Well, of course, it divided us in two. How could it not be a serious issue? Anything that's division, St. Basil said, anything that foments division is not good. So there was that. There was, every time I sat down with somebody, they were saying something to me. I was like, what do you mean you don't believe in toll houses? But like, it's in the canon of the guardian angel.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the stuff that I thought, even in seminary, was dogmatic, was being presented to me as optional. And that even in ROCOR-MP, that harkened back to my Roman Catholic days. And I was like, everything's optional. Like in OCA, confession was by and large optional. You could go for 10 years. And I thought, I don't see this in the history of the church. And it prompted me to study more, you know, and one of the things that happened is I got your book, St. Philaret, and there was a lot of people. There was a nice fellow that was a parishioner of mine, or someone who came to me for counsel, Alexander Scholhen. He went to, I blessed him to go to Father Andrews. And I remember one lady, and I shouldn't mention their names, but she was saying, Father, will you bless me to go to St. Vladimir's? And I even got a question asked her, why did you bless her to go to St. Vladimir's? Because I was like, I want to go. Like that I had read your book, because when I'd watched your interviews, and I knew you used to be in ROCOR-MP. I watched your interviews, and I was really struck by them, especially Father Andrews. Father Andrews just kept sticking with me. And I kept saying, I kept trying to convince myself of fallacies like, oh, well, there was all these schisms, so it doesn't matter. But the heart and the kind of the spirit, the orthodoxy of the heart that he was imparting really stuck with me. And so I said last Lent, I said, well, I told Matushka, I'm just going to get some books, like especially St. Philaret. I don't want his letters. I don't want any commentary. I don't want anybody suggesting anything to me. And of course, everything that it said, I found to be true. And everything that you said that Father told me, every time I had a question for Father, I said, Father, what about this? He would give me an answer, and it would turn out that I would research it, and I would come up to the saints would come to the same conclusion as what I was being told. So is that, yeah.
Yeah. So you originally, you got the first St. Philaret book, the big one. That was your first one that you read?
Yeah, well, actually, the first one I read, because I love St. Seraphim of Platina, because I got that small booklet, and I read that, because it's very confusing if you're outside of True Orthodox to understand, like, Matthewites, Florinites,
yeah,
and how that all comes into play. So when I read that, I was like, wow. And then the document, I don't know if you made Orthodox archives, but I wish I had that seminary. But I could see the documents. I could see the written documents of St. Philaret writing, saying, yeah, we're in communion. So I thought, wow, that's strange. I never knew that. I didn't really pay much attention to True Orthodox, because I didn't know it existed.
Did you bring those questions up to, like, the bishops or anything, or was it just kind of your own internal study and dialogue?
No, mostly I would start studying it and writing papers myself so I could better understand it. And then I would present, like, Archbishop of Vedki or St. Seraphim of Platina on the 10th year, on the decade of blessing from Vladika St. John of Shanghai, to bless him. Like, most people don't know this. And, it really struck me. I don't know if I should say this, but no, I should say it. It really struck me. So on my algorithm came up the Cathedral of the OCA. And this was back after I was received by thank God, by His Eminence Metropolitan Demetrius. And there was on the OCA, it said, on their YouTube channel, it said, I just watched the end of it. Just happened, Matushka and I were watching the end of it, and a priest with whom I'm very familiar, and we used to be friends, he's from Ukraine, and they said, oh, he's going to be doing it's a new calendar church, but he's going to be commemorating St. John of Shanghai. He's going to have a liturgy in the middle of the week, which is lovely. That's great. And but he's going to do it on the old calendar. I thought, wow, this is really confusing. And because it's a new calendar church, he's doing it on the old calendar. But then the other thing really struck me was, it just hit me really hard, was like, so we're willing to give lip service to St. John, but we're not willing to actually hearken to anything he said.
Mm-hmm.
That's how, from my perspective, how it was. I'm not judging because most of the people don't know,
Yeah.
but you know, just where when you read the blessing of I wrote it down here somewhere to prepare for this. Yeah, at this point, I wrote this to myself. The personal relationship between these two confessors must be stated plainly. St. Seraphim Rose was not a self-appointed authority, nor some modern internet staudits, of whom we see many today. He labored closely with and under the explicit approbation of his beloved hierarch, whom we now venerate as St. John of San Francisco. And St. John himself embodied this confession, like St. Seraphim records in the Orthodox word, he was a heroic confessor of true orthodoxy. You know, and his severe asceticism flowered in an unbounded love for his fellow men and a foolishness for Christ's sake. I loved that. So his zeal was not performative. It was like it was born out of something that was handed down. And I didn't have that experience. It didn't seem like things were being handed down. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Was there any was there any particular like document in that book that really kind of made you think about the whole true orthodoxy, world orthodoxy thing in there? Or was it just the whole attitude of like that whole?
It was the whole attitude, but I remember I was doing when I was still with ROCOR-MP, I was doing a catechism, but I was kind of teaching all this.
Mm-hmm.
I just got stuck on this for a while because I was like, well, I think like people don't know this. So yeah, there was one where he wrote to Bishop Gregory Grob's, she was a nun in Lesna.
Oh, yeah. Magdalena, the letter to Magdalena in 72 or 73.
It gives a history of the schisms, Platon and Eulogy. But his experience was exactly my experience. He was in a cathedral in Western Europe, and I guess Western Europe ROCOR was a little bit more left-leaning of the royal path, if you could say. And this lady was arguing with him, saying, "I confess to Christ."
Yeah. That story. Yeah, he didn't. She came to the chalice without communion, and he was like,
"Yeah.
Who are you to deny me communion?" He's like, "The bishop, I guess."
No, he was pastoral, and what he said was that of course really resonated with me too. Is that he said, you know, this is what schism. This is the schism. This is what it's born of. This is what happened. Eulogy, schism. They no longer preserve that which was handed down. There are so many. I mean, it's like, if you can see, it's like all tabbed and underlined everywhere, and yeah, and I mean, his sorrowful epistles. Honestly, it was all really hard to read.
Was it?
And I thought, I don't know if I would actually have his. He is a true professor because when he's getting burned, that part you wrote about his life, when he cried out to Saint Nikolay of Myra and he was healed, or not healed, but he couldn't feel the pain. He was almost half dead. It took him months to recover. But yeah, that. I mean, how can that not somehow move your heart? And then what's he dying for? So we can all be Roman Catholic. And I love Roman Catholic, my brothers and sisters. I love Roman Catholic people, but I didn't, you know, he didn't go through that so he could, you know, he went through that so he could be the saint whom Christ foresaw, not to defect to communism or Sergianism. So
yeah, that's very interesting that these. It seems like most people in ROCOR, they don't. Actually, that book there, that particular book, and his other one that's there on the shelf. His letters, or those are the two. Those are the ones that go out the door the most because those are pretty much buried. ROCOR-MP doesn't want you to know about those letters and all those synodal documents and all that stuff. like you said, it's probably hard for people to come to terms with, I'd imagine.
Yeah, because if we're going to honor the saints, we want to honor what they wrote. So in my experience, whether it was ROCOR-MP or OCA, you're there's this cognitive dissonance, like these saints' doctrines, the ecclesiological principles, they're all publicly honored, but the practical implications of those same principles are set aside, or
Mm-hmm.
they're reinterpreted. The shifting criteria we talked about before. So how do you have orthodoxy of the heart if even the foundations are skewed?
Mm-hmm.
How do you get anywhere? You're not. I can feel, since I've been with GOC, I don't know about you, but I can feel how spiritually um, less impoverished I am. One gentleman told me in GOC, and he came from ROCOR-MP, but he's no longer a clergy member. He said, I couldn't even fast. I couldn't follow the fast when I was an MP. But now, and he said, now I can follow fast. I said, well, what do you think it is? And he said, it's divine grace. I have the
Mm-hmm.
fullness of the. So I don't know, like, there's just this idea to set aside all of that which is of import in the saints and the fathers for institutional peace or harmony.
Mm-hmm.
It just, it's very effete,
Yeah, that's like I said, and I've said it in other. I've said, I think it was in Father Stephen Allen's podcast with him, or his interview, or one of the other ones. When I was writing, when I wrote that book, originally it was written by me when I was still with Uncut Mountain Press and Orthodox Ethos, and I had the little version of it. So when I was and Saint Philaret was producing miracles, because I said, okay, I'm gonna do a book on Saint Philaret. Where am I gonna find all his writings? His writings appeared to me. Someone sent it to me, or I found it like immediately. It was just one
Oh,
after another. I kept finding stuff, and it was just, and that the original book was done within a few months. But it was, I asked Saint Philaret, just, can you help me write this book? And it was one after another, after another, after another. He was just presenting me this stuff, and then I found 75 audio translations that have never been translated, that were original. They were audio, so I had them translated from Russian into English, and that was very expensive. So that was not cheap. That was not a cheap endeavor. So it took me like two and a half years to get that done, because you're talking, $200 to $500 per audio translation. So it gets pricey.
yeah. And by
But
the way, I was listening to Metropolitan Demetrius a lot, even
mhm,
when I was a priest for 3 years in OCA, and I loved it. I actually thought he was some, very pious Orthodox gorge
mhm,
bishop. That's how
yeah.
I knew I was. But the other thing is, I did have some kind of small miracle happen, and I usually don't pray like this, but before I went to the first vigil at Saint Vladimir's,
Mhm,
I went on my knees and I prayed the Akathist written by Saint Seraphim of Platina to Saint John, before his icon. After the 13th Icos that you
mhm,
say times, I I actually prayed and I said, like, Saint John, like, my soul's at stake, like the salvation of others are at stake. Please, if this is true, like, then give me an especial sign. And I usually don't pray like that, you know.
mhm,
And I was very distraught with all the information in the book, because it kind of up it really upturns your world. Everything is like a 180. And that night when I went there, I didn't feel like proud or look. First of all, I knew I'd obtained great mercy, but when I went to that vigil, just the way they were all praying, like I said, there was something spiritually I intuited that wasn't just some kind of, charismatic Pentecostal experience, but it
mhm,
was an experience, and I wanted to get out of there. I felt like Peter when they caught the big fish, and he said, "Depart from me, I'm a sinner." And I was like, oh, Father, I have to serve somewhere tomorrow. And in fact, I had to serve in an MP parish and concelebrate with another priest. And Father said, oh, before you go, I have St. John of Shanghai's Epitrachilion. And I literally started to cry, like, when then he said, would you like to put it on? And it was so moving to me. And I just felt in an instant that now I was a part of this tradition. I wasn't actually a part of it because I was still serving, but I'd encountered something that was handed down. St. John blessed St. Seraphim. St. Seraphim blessed and baptized Matushka Nina and Father Andrew. And I thought, now I'm in the line. That's how it's supposed to work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that was kind of an experience that was unbelievable. I still have the picture today of me in St. John's Epitrachilion. And actually, before that, I don't know if it was you interviewing, it was not you, but someone was doing an interview in ROCOR-MP, and they were saying, oh, we have all the relics. We have St. John's. We have St. So when I went to the church, I did not expect at all to see John.
Yeah.
And maybe forgive me if that story is too saccharine or, but it was a real thing that happened to me. I said, I need an especial sign to St. John. And wow, I come there and his relics are there. And Father said, would you like to put St. John's Epitrachilion on? I mean, I never experienced people showing me relics and stuff before. Maybe you did because I was in the country or in the OCA, and people just, that didn't happen to me.
Mm-hmm. So what was that? Was that your defining moment when you decided to come over, or was there still more like internal struggle on with the stuff you're reading?
Yes, Sadiq, there was a lot of internal struggle because I was like, I remember once telling Father, well, I'm there, but I don't know about Matushka. And we have all these friends, they're so loving. We were very tight with a lot of people. We would have January 7th nativity at our house. So that still hurts. We're human. But no, it was, I don't know. It was just a gradual thing, just reading, studying, and praying. And one time I came home from serving a ROCOR-MP parish for the weekend, and it was quite far away, like 5.5 hour drive. And Matushka had seen the deposition, and so that, I mean, that was hard to, like, you just can't unsee this, like we said before we started. Like, how there are people that, I don't know, they know this and they're okay with it. I'm not of that ilk. I'm more like Father Stephen Allen and Father Andrew. I mean, nothing like their holiness, but I just, I do have the courage. Well, I'm a coward, but I couldn't, in face of everything that I'd experienced and seen, say that. And of course, we have the miraculous mirror from St. Nicholas Mission in Las Vegas, right? Which we're going to. So I'd never experienced that before either. The scent of that and being anointed with that every Saturday.
Yeah, that's very. I have some here in the house, and that's very fragrant, very potent stuff.
Yeah, and then even the Father showed me not too long ago before Vigil the relics of Saint Demetrius. I can't remember, and that had a strong sense to it, different. And on our holy table when we serve, there's all these relics. And so you're right. You're in the cloud of witnesses. Where are the cloud of witnesses? That's what I kept thinking to myself. Where are these cloud of witnesses? And how are we still communing with them, right? But unfortunately, there's this prevalent notion that you can commune and commemorate with heresy. It's not in St. Maximus the Confessor, St. Mark of Ephesus, St. Photius the Great, St. Cyprian of Carthage. I'm rereading St. Cyprian of Carthage and his ecclesiology. It's exactly what we profess faithfully in GOC, His Eminence Metropolitan Demetrius. I encourage anybody that's listening just to listen to his last homily. It was great on the entrance of the Theotokos, or at least the last I saw.
Yeah. Backtracking a bit for those who don't know what the deposition is. So the deposition video, as I mentioned in my interview with Evan a few weeks ago, the deposition video is a video of Bishop Gabriel being deposed by a bunch of attorneys that had to do with the 2007 false union between the Moscow Patriarchate and the ROCOR at the time, and the attorneys asking Bishop Gabriel if the Moscow Patriarchate is going to leave the World Council of Churches, and if they're not, would that not put the ROCOR under the anathema of 1983? And Gabriel said yes. If we didn't, if that was not removed, if that anathema, or if the anathema is not removed, then the ROCOR-MP the ROCOR joining with the Moscow Patriarchate, they're going to fall under their own anathema. So he's admitting that when they go into union, they are falling under their own anathema. So that's the deposition video. So you can see that on YouTube. It's still available and pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, thanks, Subdeacon. I shouldn't assume that everybody, because I didn't know any of this. So.
Yeah, a lot of people don't. I put it in my Telegram. It's on my Instagram. It's on YouTube. We've pretty much put it everywhere. So he's admitted that.
Yeah, and the lived Orthodox experience, like the whole mind, heart, and life, like this is all within our liturgy. Like you can teach this, and if you take the Akathist of Saint Seraphim of Platina, I don't know who wrote it, but it says, who condemned the error of compromise.
Mm-hmm.
It's right there. I mean, St. John of San Francisco, they say, it was written by St. Seraphim of Platina, accuser of impiety and false doctrine. So St. John of Shanghai, I don't think a lot of people know, he refused to be silenced in the face of when the faith was endangered. And so that, I don't think if you just even read or pray the Akathist, you'll see that this is something that you're not being taught elsewhere.
Yeah. It's like in my book, The History of Resistance. I don't know if you have that one. That's almost 200 pages of it are purely liturgical text about heretics. It's all about heresy. You can't be in communion with heretics. 200 pages of liturgical text. So you're praying this, but then you're staying in communion with heretics. It's doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and that's and it's funny that when you actually do delve into these saints and you do venerate them, even like our Saint Joseph of Edmonton. I remember I sent you a picture of Father and I in front of his chapel.
Mm-hmm.
We just served in a new chapel of his. I mean, he was sent to Canada, and I mean the miraculous story of the farmers here. I don't know where it was, whether it was here or Brazil, where they got rain, because we have drought. We have a lot of farming community where I live, because I'm outside of Edmonton, Alberta. And this is, a lot of times when you have that foundation, then these other miracles happen. I said to one fellow who's a catechumen, and I said, like, don't leave us. Don't leave GOC before the miracle happens. Like, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to happen. It's just, and it's really been miraculous to me. It's like we have a family, and we love everybody. I mean, we're not sitting here saying nobody can come. We're not insular. We invite everybody. People show up all the time to our parish, and more often than not, I'd like to think that they'll stay.
Mm-hmm. What it sounds like is Matushka. So you were ready mentally. You were already you were already off the mental plantation, and so it was Matushka she was really like the unsure one, and then she saw that video. Is that kind of was that the deal,
Yeah,
or was it still more?
yeah, there was that, but I think once she went to the vigil, and there's something about it when you go to these synods and you like GOC. I mean, it's a big synod,
Mhm.
it's got under it former ROCOR, the Synod in Resistance, and I think once she saw that, but there was another thing she saw um, of Patriarch Kirill in his 2006 union with the Pope. Uh, so that kind of turned her off because, of course, we're supposed to commemorate where we are. I that there wasn't much commemoration of Patriarch Kirill because it's Ukrainian community,
Mhm.
but still, she kind of needed to see things for herself, and I just wanted to, and she witnessed the inner transformation and the miracle herself.
Mhm.
So yeah, I didn't really have to, but I honestly, Subdeacon Nectarius, I thought, I don't know how your wife was, but I was thinking, oh, she's not going to come because
Really?
it's
No, mine was the opposite. She was like,
because of the
mine,
emotion.
mine was ready. Mine was
Oh,
ready back in 2019. Really?
oh, good, yeah, yeah. So that's
Yeah.
good. But for us, it was just and many things of like what Subdeacon Seraphim said the last interview. I
Mhm.
mean, uh, I had all those kind of eye-opening experiences. Uh, but yeah, she finally she came, and you know, she's Matushka Nina's her godmother, and it's
Mhm.
been wonderful. Like you don't have this, when you're in, like I was around World Orthodox for a long time,
Mhm.
uh, I was only baptized 15 years ago, but
Mhm.
like officially, but I was in the church, going to the church, following the fast, and it was it, I just I got so exhausted. It's spiritually depleting for the resist within, and like
Mhm.
hoping there's going to be this. It was just like Roman Catholicism, hoping there's going to be this conservative pope, and he's just going to make these sweeping changes. Or the whole, I think with us in Orthodoxy, there's going to be this pan-Orthodox synod,
Mhm.
and it's going to, but we don't have to wait for that. I mean, may Godspeed to that pan-Orthodox synod that rights things wrongs. But according to Canon 15, we don't have to. And I
Mhm.
think Father, the first time I talked to Father Andrew at the end of last February, he told me about Canon 15. Now, I would have studied these things, but I don't specifically remember when we studied dogmatics, Canon 15.
Yeah, we'll not talk about that one.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll not talk about that one. Let's set that aside. Yeah, that's yeah, they did what did you so you were kind of in that did you kind of bought into that whole resist within movement too? Is that
I never bought into it. It just that you didn't know there was any other position. You'd be like, I remember, I think in about 2008, I read a famous patriarch's environmental treatise, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is horrible.
yeah.
And you just keep doing that, but you do believe in some way that, well, at least I'm trying to preserve what's been handed down. And I didn't really know anything. I didn't.
Mhm.
I was really quite naive. Actually, even when I went to seminary, I figured that everybody loved each other, like all the patriarchs. And then I went to seminary, and I was like, oh, wait a
Yeah,
minute.
not so much.
They don't like this patriarch, and this patriarch doesn't like that patriarch, and this bishop doesn't like that bishop. So you were, it was a little. I was just under the assumption that there was a pentarchy, and
Mhm.
once we all could assent to that, then everything's okay, and then reality sets in.
Yeah.
But
So when did you
still,
make your final? So when did you make that? When was the? So you came to the gradual realization that you couldn't fight it any longer, and then.
yeah. I mean, definitely Father Andrew's interview influenced me because of the spiritual lineage, and then I had watched a parishioner of a former parishioner of mine had told me about Father Stephen Allen. And I mean, he is really convincing, and that's the difference between just being being polemical for the sake of polemics.
Yeah.
When I watched even Father, I remember once I was driving back from serving a parish, and I was listening to Father Stephen Allen talk about orthodoxy and the history and what's been handed down, and I stopped and I wanted to pray. Like I felt this intuition, like this was inspiring me spiritually, whereas before I always thought, well, it's kind of an intellectual endeavor, divorced from, I mean, the theologians, the world Orthodox, like Mayendorf, Schmemann, they all say nice things and they can be poetic, but exactly what Father Stephen Allen experienced. I was telling a bishop that I served with at the convent. I was saying, yeah, when I came into World Orthodoxy, I was kind of surprised because the Reconstructionism that I heard from Karl Rahner and von Balthasar and all the Catholic theologians, and even in comparative theology, Boltman and Moltmann, was that was there was definitely that was characteristic of also the Meyendorf and Schmemann. So, and in my experience, Reconstructionism always ends up in deconstructionism, and I was like, I really don't want that.
Yeah,
I was still more, I liked St. Theodore the Studite, St. Mark of Ephesus. I remember writing a paper on him. So yeah, it was kind of a gradual, but in my heart, I was already there. I mean, probably you too, right? In ROCOR-MP, you were probably already there in your heart.
Yeah, for me, it was. For me, I had an experience back in 2005 where I saw the persecution of Esphigmeno and Mount Athos, where the monks were getting beat up and arrested by the Patriarch of Constantinople, and I'm like, because they don't want to be friendly with the Pope, they are going to go through this. That's it. So I automatically wrote Bartholomew off, like immediately. Automatically, and then I was very supportive of Esphigmeno early on, so I knew they weren't. I knew the old calendars were not schismatics. I knew that. But yeah, when I came over, it was like I've told the story many times. When I eventually came over, it's because Metropolitan reached out to me, and he's like, "Well, here you can just have a blessing to be Orthodox." And then when I actually came over and was received, it was the life of the GOC was just how I read in the books that I put together. So how everything was, you see people people in ROCOR-MP, they idolize old ROCOR, some, and they have this idea that it's the same place, and then it's not. And then when I entered the GOC, I was like, wow, this is like a time capsule. We're going back. It feels like how everything I've read. So it was interesting.
Yeah, and that's
Metropolitan Demetrius is like an actual bishop, so that I keep saying that, but I like to harp that point where he's different from the ROCOR-MP bishop, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't say it any better than that. And they also when Father Stephen Allen said, "Listen, we're barely hanging on. We're not better than anybody. But we're Orthodox."
Yeah.
And you read the ecumenical synods. We were just in Father Fodes, we're taking some continuing education courses, and he was talking about how they prefer synod over council. But anyways, we were talking about like as it was handed down, and that wasn't my experience. It was kind of, there was some innovation, this whole resist within, and there's something in your heart, like it's you're spiritually intuiting something's amiss. Just like when I was in Roman Catholic, I felt, something's amiss. And then I started reading all these Orthodox. My first paper in Roman Catholic college was about Adventus Dominus, the first Advent, and I was reading about the Orthodox and the fasting, and I was like, wow, we don't do that. And then all of a sudden that got me thinking, oh, the early Christians fasted on Wednesday and Friday. Well, we don't. It's just piece by piece. It speaks to your heart. It's not I really like Saint Seraphim of Platina when he says, the first thing I had to do was crucify my intellect. Right? Your intellect is going to tell you all kinds of incorrect things. Oh, well, you won't have these friends anymore. Your family's not going to like you. But what the fathers are telling you is that, yeah, it's serious. It's the salvation of your soul. That one thing really actually convinced me when Saint Seraphim said, we here, the bishops that I'm with, we believe, and I myself, we believe that the salvation of our soul is paramount. And when he writes to his friend and he talks about, yes, I'm a fanatic, all Orthodox, true Orthodox in their heart are fanatics, so.
Not in a bad way, but fanatics for Christ, rather.
Sorry, it's probably a bad word. I meant the way Saint Seraphim was saying it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, and the whole thing about, I remember I was talking to a friend that used to be either a parishioner in another, I can't remember, but which friend it was, but the whole idea of uncanonical versus canonical came up. And I thought, well, what can we say about that? I mean, there's a widespread misapprehension about this. The claim that we are the canonical church, when used like as a blanket assertion, it's got to be carefully qualified. It functions as a fallacy. The canonical church is when the church, like his Metropolitan Demetrius, actually observes the weightier canons, right? So it's strange when you hear people say, like, we're the canonical church. That, to me, that implies that you follow the canons, or you at least
we're the canonical church, but we're going to go to the Hindu temple and pray with Hindus and call them divine and stuff.
Yeah,
that's not so canonical.
And it's sad because this information isn't out there except for you and his Eminence Metropolitan Demetrius, and so and it's just people don't know. Like I myself didn't know.
Yeah. There's a lot of people. You brought up a point is about my friends aren't going to like me. I think that's a lot of people's problem is they have that social stigma. They're gonna call me a schismatic. They're not gonna be friends with me anymore. And there's a lot of that. Did you have a lot of that when you came over? Were you worried about that, like not being, ostracized from
Matushka, and then to some extent, there was some of that. I have to be honest. There are people that aren't our friends anymore, but we have this new family. We have the friends and family and the bishops that we never dreamed of. I mean, yourself, like His Grace Bishop Benedict, His Eminence, they're so approachable. I mean, I couldn't even believe he called on my, when I was received, and he, he's greetings, and he's so like loving, like, I miss you guys. I want to see you. It was just, it was so beautiful. And we have these conferences, like we were talking to an old, under Agathongal in Brazil. We're very tight, and you don't feel isolated like you thought you would. But yeah, there are some people, unfortunately, they see it as abandonment, and that somehow maybe we've abandoned them, or but I could never make the criterion of my faith being that I will have this one person in my life but lose my soul. What does it profit a man if he gaineth the whole world but suffer the loss of his soul? So, well, you get your cat there, nice.
Yeah, she's like bugging me. She's like, "What are you doing? I'm busy. Why do you hiss at me? Get out of here." But Yeah, that was one of the things. I didn't have that because I was in the military and I came from a background. I was like, I don't care if you're not going to talk to me, whatever. So it's like I didn't have that issue. I was like, all right, bye. So
Yeah, I
but
still love him. I wish we could be. Some of us are still friends, but others,
yeah, I
like
have one person that actually two people that are still in ROCOR-MP that they still talk to me like nothing's changed. Or like, I don't really care where you're at as far as like it's not a real concern of theirs much. But
yeah.
so when you can't go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, so when you finally came over in that decision, what Father Andrew played a big part in that?
Yeah, and we were just talking, about Father Andrew and I were just talking, and this kind of remain in communion with the heresy and the theologians, and it's very easy to do that today.
Mm-hmm.
And just take it to its conclusion. It's a reductio ad absurdum. And like Father Andrew pointed out, like, well, I mean, in face of the witness of the fathers and the saints across the centuries, we can go back, like we talked earlier, St. Cyprian of Carthage, right up to St. Seraphim Rose, St. Philard of New York, St. John of Shanghai, and St. Joseph, and even St. Vitali. We've watched videos of St. Vitali. Now, a lot of the parishioners there have witnessed him, but there is something when he speaks, even when he's talking about something simple like, why do we pray standing? He made kind of a joke, what, do you want to sit there like pork? It's God before you. But just little things like that, it's so, you're just so inspired, and it's all from the heart when he speaks. He's not just approachable, but it's like he's touching you, something upon your heart. And
Yeah.
and it just keeps, that's how it goes. The difficulty today is, the widespread assumption that truth must be presented in a form that's agreeable to modern sensibilities.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but historically and patristically, this, as you've pointed out in your books and the history of resistance, which I haven't got yet, it's not true.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yeah,
and even the sharpness of, like, I think Father Stephen Allen talked about the vituperations sometimes expediently used in the fathers. It's these invectives. It's because it's the salvation of our souls that they're concerned with. These bishops, they're not using this sharp rhetoric because that they're a mean person. Because when you meet them, they're not. I mean, you've met Metropolitan Demetrius.
Yeah, they're not.
His Grace Bishop Benedict, they're lovely, they're approachable. I remember once we had this table set aside, and His Grace came, Bishop Benedict, and some guy just came from the vigil and just sat down, and he said, "Can I sit here?" And even though it was the head table, His Grace was like, "Yeah, sure, come on, sit down." And
Yeah.
wine and a meal like that. That it's very approachable. Very there's this warmth, that honestly I haven't experienced that before.
Yeah. I want to mention I'm gonna call Father Andrew out on this, because remember in the interview where he's like, well, I tried to avoid you and I didn't want to do an interview and Matushka made me. I'm talking to you, Father Andrew. You see, Father Nikolay, if you didn't do that interview. So,
Hey, good point. Yeah. And I think it was Anna that told him to do it.
Yeah. I was like,
Anna,
maybe a subdeacon, but I know some stuff.
yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, you're right. If I hadn't seen that, I don't know, maybe not, because
Yeah, who knows? But it
because
was a compelling interview.
Yeah, and the Saint Seraphim letters, they're not. I'm glad that I found a site that actually had them unedited.
Yeah, there's a book. Where is that book? Somewhere. It's huge. Oh, it's over there. There's actually a book. It's the only. there it is. Look at that.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's a big one. So you can tell how it is. It's like almost the size of a gospel book. So
Yeah,
that's
I've read some of the letters that I could at least find online twice.
yeah.
And
So this is the letters. So if you're, for those who don't want who don't like reading online, like I don't like reading online.
and the thing is, he's 1960s to 1980s, and then you read Saint Cyprian of Carthage, and you're like, wow, they sound the same. They sound very similar. I was rereading Saint Cyprian, some of his epistles, and like his strident language toward the Pope. Did he love the Pope? Of course he did.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just hit me when I was reading it, Sadiq, and I was like, well, the Pope Stephen of the 3rd century was much more Orthodox than what we see today.
Yeah.
And he was strident then. So what would he say now? He would be still.
Saint Seraphim actually loved Saint Cyprian of Carthage, and actually in the dogmatic textbook, Dogmatic Theology by Michael Pomazansky, there's a footnote in there where Saint Seraphim, because he wrote it, he says, paraphrasing, that Saint Cyprian of Carthage had the perfect ecclesiology of the Orthodox Church. So that's a rough paraphrase, but
I got it right here. I got Orthodox, but I loved Father Pomazansky. We took him for 4 years, and I loved his. It's only an introduction, but to me, it wasn't an introduction. It was.
Yeah, there's a paragraph in there, and I think I quoted it in one of my books where, because people like to try to dismiss Saint Cyprian of Carthage because he's too strict or whatever, but Saint Seraphim Rose himself says, no, we follow Saint Cyprian of Carthage.
Yeah, send me that if you have that.
Yeah, I quoted it in one of my books, but I know it's in the Dogmatic Theology, Michael Pomazansky. It's in that book.
Okay, well, I've got that, so
it's in the back. It's toward the back. It's like,
well, and I was reading the another thing that really helps me. I'm getting strengthened all the time. Like, I'm still learning. I'm a new priest. But I was reading the sessions of the Seventh Ecumenical Council, and there was a Basil Ankira who returned, and he sets forth the criteria of what it means to be Orthodox. And he says, inasmuch as ecclesiological legislation has canonically been handed down from past time, even from the beginning, from the holy apostles and from their successors, who were our holy fathers and teachers, and also from the 6 holy and ecumenical synods, and from the local synods which were gathered in the interest of orthodoxy, that those returning from any heresy whatever to the Orthodox faith and to the tradition of the Orthodox Catholic Church might deny their own heresy and confess the Orthodox faith. So it's one criterion, and the characteristics are there like that. That's what we believe in the GOC.
Mm-hmm. So when were you actually received officially into the GOC?
July 6th, I believe it was. I should know the feast day. Oh, yeah. Actually, I was received St. Vladimir's.
Appropriate day?
Yes. So it was the Feast of St. Vladimir's. I'm pretty sure that's when I was received.
It's a pretty appropriate feast day right there.
Yeah.
Oh, here it is. It says in my book, it's the first. According to Father Seraphim Rose, sees more ancient church fathers who must be examined on the subject of St. Firmilian of Caesarea, St. Cyprian of Carthage. Father Seraphim Rose says St. Cyprian is one of the most authoritative of the early fathers of the church. And wow. That's on page 386 of the Orthodox Dogmatic Theology, for those who are wondering. So St. Seraphim Rose says St. Cyprian of Carthage is the most authoritative of the early church fathers. So
yeah, and I don't think people understand that are watching, like St. Seraphim Rose was blessed by St. John of Shanghai to write what he wrote. And even when they were criticized, I think St. John's response, so this is what it says. It's from its earliest issues with St. John's explicit approval, the Orthodox word adopted what St. Seraphim describes as an outspoken expression of the truth. It spoke plainly about schism, heresy, ecumenism, about deviations from orthodoxy, even among hierarchs. And it spoke about orthodoxy of the heart, of the Jesus prayer, of all the Russian Golgotha, all the saints. Some protested that the brotherhood had no right to attack bishops. St. John's response was decisive. This is St. John of San Francisco. He fully approved of this outspoken tone and affirmed that these articles breathed the same spirit as those written by Archbishop Averki of Jordanville. And somewhere he tells St. John, if you have theological issues, consult Archbishop Averki. And when I read him, I was done. Like once I read him, I was like, well, St. John recommended him. And he was so clear. Even the things that they do with a time when the bishop didn't do something canonical, and I'm not endorsing that, but St. Archbishop Averki said when they had the local meeting, and I think it was Akakius that was ordained in the old calendars, the first Archbishop Averki spoke and he said, listen, the canons were made for man, not man for the canons. This was necessary at this time, the binding and loosing. And then St. John spoke and he said, I mean, come on, we need to be pastoral. These bishops have been coming to us for years, asking us. And so you have this oneness of mind you don't have. Until I came into the GOC, there wasn't this one cup, one baptism, one chalice, and this oneness of mind. And I just, for me, it gets me up every morning. I just love it.
So Matushka, and then Matushka gave you the okay, and then you came.
Yeah,
and, like you're like, all right, let's go to Father Andrews.
Yeah, Matushka was, it was. She loved it, and she loves it to this day. It's wonderful. She, there's no regrets on my part. I don't have any. I thought maybe I would have buyer's remorse or something, but no, I did have buyer's remorse when I went to ROCOR-MP, but I didn't when I came into the GOC. I just.
What'd you find about what was the buyer's remorse in ROCOR-MP that you found?
Well, I mean, the very minute I was received, I heard one bishop talk about, that he goes down to Jordanville with the OCA. Well, I had just written I just actually told a friend, well, I can't commune in the OCA because I'd just written this. Sorry, not written, but I had just read some of what St. Philaret said, St. Vitali, even St. Seraphim was very pastoral. People don't know that about him. He said, there's a cooling off with us, and we're not allowed to commune because we want to be sure that we're following and preserving what's been handed down. So then when the bishop had told me, I was with my old bishop in OCA and he was with him in Jordanville, I thought, well, why did I leave then? Start to question things, right? So what if we're all in communion, then? Because when I went to the bishop to be received, when I went to Vladimir, he was very loving and he was very patient, and he said to me, well, yes, everything you were teaching was correct, and that's what I believe. So I thought I was just going to old ROCOR. I had no idea that. I mean, did you know? I didn't even know ROCOR was united with MP. You should right away because they're commemorating the hierarch, but I had no idea.
Yeah, well, I definitely knew, and I was always every time his name got mentioned, I'm like, ugh, he just did that last week. Ugh, he just did that last week or the week prior. I'm like,
but they try to de-emphasize that and emphasize their autonomy. We're an autonomous body.
Yeah,
it's like nobody calls it in Canada ROCOR-MP. They call it ROCOR.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we're gonna do a book, or we're gonna do a book entirely. I'm trying to get one of my friends. He's an attorney, and he's with a GOC. Maybe he'll do it, or maybe there's one of our priests is an attorney. I'm trying to get them to do an actual canonical and legal analysis of the that union document, because they're not autonomous whatsoever. Whatever Kirill says applies to MP. So if they go to, communion with the monophysites like the Antiochians, and ROCOR-MP is right there with them. So it's kind of how it goes.
And I think Subdeacon Seraphim mentioned that
Yeah.
his parish was going to continue with them.
Yeah, that was his sticking point. So when you came over, what was your experience is kind of it's kind of the same as a lot of others. It's so I read these, I've read the church fathers say this, and then I read these old Orthodox ROCOR documents that say what the church fathers said, and here we are, and now we're, where we are, so I can't be here. So when you came to the GOC, what was your experience like right off the bat when you received as a priest? So what was it like at your first divine liturgy? What was that like? I'm interested in hearing that.
Well, it was amazing to be next to Father Andrew, and so here I am next to this guy who St. John blesses, and I think he baptized. Did St. John baptize? I think he baptized St. Seraphim.
No, Saint Seraphim Rose was actually, he was chrismated. He wasn't baptized, but
sorry. So anyways, he was received, and then you have Father Matushka. Like Matushka, wow, her lived experience, her orthodoxy and her orthopraxy are amazing. So, but yeah, it was something to sit there with that. Honestly, I never saw anybody serve like that when I saw Father serve, and it really impacted me because of the praying from the heart. And honestly, myself, I probably still do, but I would kind of say the actenia is very fast, and maybe it was more performative. May God forgive. But yeah, it was amazing to be there. And Father Andrew always says to me, he's an archpriest. She was an equal. You're my equal. And we have I encourage any people from Edmonton to come, but we have a big catechism class online, and Father and I, and but yeah, it was wonderful. That first liturgy, it was surreal, really. Even me, when I was doing the deacon's parts, when his Grace Benedict was there, because I'm the junior priest. But yeah, it was unbelievable. Even serving at the when you're in St. Joseph's Chapel and you see all these things, you see the saint. I mean, he was sent because of all the parishes lost from ROCOR. He was sent to get them back, and Father likes to say that St. Joseph is calling his people back. And I believe that I do feel close to him too. Like when I'm in the, honestly, the draw for me, or what drew me, was the prayers of St. Seraphim and St. John. I really relate to St. Seraphim, obviously more than St. John, because I was secular. I lived in the world, and I wanted worldly things, and I wasn't like St. John. Is like, that story that St. Philaret tells that, we're the hieromonk says to him, I can't remember the name, we're when are we going to pray? They're somewhere over in Europe. And St. Philaret says, well, we're going to start at 4 a.m., but I may be paraphrasing incorrectly, but
yeah,
on Vladika John, he's not going to start because he never stops praying.
Yeah. Seems like it was like a rough transition, but maybe not so much as some others. It seems like, because for a lot of others, it's like, it's a huge battle. Like for me, it was a huge battle. I had a heretic bishop preaching heresy from the Ambo, saying, you don't have to be Orthodox. It's not a criterion of salvation, or the monophysites have mysteries, go commune at papist churches. So for me, it was a real battle. Like for Subdeacon Seraphim, it was a battle. For like Evan, and there's a lot of people, it's a real battle. But for you, it seemed like it was more of an internal struggle.
Well, no, I had that too. I had all that battle because, like, I guess I de-emphasized that, but all the personal with clergy, they would just be telling me things that were capital U unorthodox.
Mhm.
We don't believe in the toll houses. We don't believe in this.
Mhm.
I don't know if you've ever been to, I can't say all OCA, but the OCA parishes that I served in had a very Protestant ethos. So that's disturbing. Like when you come in
Yeah.
there, you want to be Orthodox, and that's why you came to Orthodoxy. You didn't came so you could be what you were prior to coming.
Yeah.
So that really, really disturbing. There was times where, and lots of times the way it worked, at least for me in World Orthodoxy, is they would refer to their predecessor.
Mhm.
So in GOC, we always refer to, well, St. Theodore the Studite, some father said this, and then we can put it all the way back to the apostolic canons.
Mhm.
But a lot of times, in at least my experience in World Orthodoxy, was like, well, Father, my predecessor said, it was okay to participate fully in the secular Halloween. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
so that was a struggle,
Yeah.
because that's more confusing than just being either Protestant or, because sometimes it seems like they're Orthodox and they say Orthodox things, and then sometimes it seems like they're Protestant or Catholic, and you're like, oh, wait a minute. And
Yeah.
I had priests straight out tell me that they believed in the Hall theory, which is just C.S. Lewis's version of the branch theory.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's
So
crazy.
yeah, I did struggle with all what you struggled, but I knew spiritually something was amiss because of that.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it was like a violent experience. It was like, it was a battle of ideas and personalities and public clashes and social media. It was a mess. But yeah, once I
I'm
came
not
in
on
there,
social media, but it's hard too, because our experience is like, we have no bishop in the West.
Mhm.
Bishops are all, from Alberta to Toronto or Montreal, that's like a lot of miles, right?
Yeah.
So kind of the deans would act as our, would be almost like a surrogate bishop, and then
Mhm.
not officially, but
Yeah.
so you would call the dean if you had a problem. Now if I have a theological issue, I can talk to Bishop Exentios or His Grace Benedict,
Mhm.
but I kind of wasn't trained that way. I was trained in World Orthodox. You kind of figure it out on your own. If there was really something you needed that was pressing, and you couldn't think your way through, then you would talk to the bishop. And honestly, I didn't like sometimes the answer. So
Yeah. That's what's interesting about our bishops is like, if I have a question, I could text, I could text Metropolitan, I could text Bishop Benedict, or send Bishop Oxentios a message, or if it has to do with the UK, I'd like send a message to um, Metropolitan Ambrose or Bishop Photios in Greece. It's like
wow.
that's kind of, yeah, it's crazy. It's not, before it's like, who is this little subdeacon writing me? It's like, who's he think he is? And like Bishop Ambrose, he'll write me, and he's like literally as soon as he wakes up, I get an email. I'm like, I love him. He's great.
You'll have to give me his email too.
Yeah, I love Metropolitan Ambrose. He's awesome. I really want to see his diocese in the UK grow with Subdeacon Seraphim and Father Evangelos and some others that have recently are coming to the GOC from ROCOR-MP. That's great.
Yeah, I think our
So
experience is a bit different than his. Yeah,
yeah.
because
So
there's no.
the last question I had for you is, so what would you say to those who are on the fence about coming to the GOC? If they're, they got that anxiety about, oh, I'm going to lose friends, they're going to call me schismatic. What would you say to those types?
Well, I guess I would say the same thing that Father Stephen Allen said. Like, it's the salvation of your soul, and all that stuff falls away. It does. Of of course we're human, so we feel those hurts and we still love those people. But I mean, we have a wonderful family at St. Vladimir's. You know, Anna just called me today, Father's daughter, the choir director, to, you know, trying to talk about us, our trip down to, I mean, honestly, it's been beyond my dreams. I never had, it's been beyond our expectations, Matushka and ours. So I think it's faith in God. Like, that's what Father said to me. He goes, we always had faith that God would look after us. And that's been my experience. Yes, God has looked after us. And it's been, and he's, as God does, he's not just met, he's surpassed our expectations. So I would worry about if I was saying, like, you know, we're all loving, uh, and you've been great to me right from the beginning. You know, like, I know you got to get up and work, and I got to get up early. Sometimes you and I have texted till like 1 in the morning. Like, you're not alone when you join this. It's not like you're in isolation. I mean, look, we're so far away geographically.
Yeah.
We're all connected, and I'm hoping to start connecting with the Father Seraphim, given my Irish background, or Subdeacon Seraphim, sorry.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You've given the you've done it now.
So I mean, it's
Sorry, Subdeacon Seraphims. Be ready.
yeah. So now, yeah, you won't have to answer my late night questions. It'll be
Yeah. Well, he's I talk to
6 hours.
him all the time too. Yeah, he's 5 hours ahead of me. So
Yeah. So I mean, if that specifically answering that concern, I mean, look at it. Like, I mean, we have the clergy group.
yeah.
We have Reader John at our church. There's so many people. I have parishioners talking to me. There was 3 people that were my parishioners that I had contact with, that they were in GOC, or 2 of them at least were in GOC before I was.
Uh-huh.
So it's that isolation doesn't think, that's what I thought. I thought, oh, I'd be isolated. But I mean, I was, to tell you how friendly it is, I was a couple of weeks ago over at Father Andrew and Matushka's. I traveled there about an hour and a half away from my house, and I was on their property getting firewood for the stoves.
Nice.
We're really tight. Like, I can't wait. I hope you come out in the summer, so Deacon, and you can see like the skeet, and you could serve with us, and you'd be welcome to stay with us if you don't mind a dog.
That'd be great. Yeah, I'm looking. Well, and I don't like traveling during the summer because I hate the heat. So
Me too. Yeah.
no, I don't do the heat. I lived in Arizona for a while, and I now live in Virginia, where it's like a swamp during the summer. So I go from AC to AC to AC. I'm too big for that.
Well, you'd love it here in the winter because we've got the wood stove, and
Yeah.
27 degrees downstairs.
Oh, my wife would hate that. She'd hate that. She's like,
believe it or not, it's weird here in the winter. I love the AC, and we can't stand the summers, but with the stove, because it's so cold outside and it's so cold
Yeah.
in one spot of the house, it's really quite nice.
yeah, here it's only 30 degrees because my wife's Mexican, so she does not do cold weather. So it drops below 60 degrees, and she's like, nah.
Yeah.
So, all right, Father. Well, I'm glad we got to talk and introduce you to our GOC community, and for you telling us your story. It's been a lot of people they want to hear, because a lot of people are on the fence. I get a lot of messages that people are like, I'm not sure. You guys they think, because a lot of the ortho bro and the YouTube starets, as you said, they're just like crazy propagandists who are just like, oh, they're crazy bloodthirsty zealots. It's like, no, we just don't want you guys to be heretics anymore. It's like pretty simple.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice. It's been wonderful. Like we got the clergy group. To tell you the truth, I didn't have this closeness when I was in the other where I'm texting. I can text anybody, and we have the seminary. Father Fodi is wonderful.
Mhm.
It's taught me a lot. I've learned a lot in his courses. So
Yeah,
yeah, I mean,
it's a it's so interesting. Is like I write Metropolitan Agafongal if I have like because I one of his churches is nearby, so I can write Metropolitan Agafongal in the Russian church. I've had questions about the Bulgarian church. I literally wrote to Metropolitan Foti, and I got a reply from Archbishop Seraphim. Just it's so it's not only the GOC that we're connected with. We're also connected with the Bulgarian Old Calendarists and the Russian Church abroad and under Metropolitan Agafongal and their priests, and it's just we're nice and tight group. So
yeah, and just so people know, Metropolitan Agathongal has more diocese than ROCOR-MP. So,
yeah, especially outside of the United States, his church is getting big. So
yeah, there's a lot of Romanians too. There's the Moldavians at our church, and this is in this cross is the relics of Saint Glycida of Romania.
Oh, nice, very nice.
Yeah,
oh,
this, I was given this by Father Andrew. It's a Saint Saint Nectarius of Aegina.
yeah, that's my patron saint.
Yeah.
I have
So
his relics here.
A lot of people don't know his story and the persecutions he went for being loyal to Orthodoxy, right? That part of the story is kind of missed.
I have his relics here, actually.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it was a gift from a old ROCOR-MP friend.
Yeah, I have a small portion of his relics right here.
Nice. All right, Father. Well, it's good to speak with you, and I'll end the recording and we'll talk after. But Father bless, and we'll talk soon.
Blessed is our God, always now and ever into the age of. Thank you so much, Subdeacon.
Thank you, Father.